All right, so my name is Kristen Aro, co-chair of the Warners Pond Task Force, and I'm calling this public meeting to order at 6:02. Let's take a roll call. I'll start first. Kristen Aro,
Keith Hannon. Toby Berkman, CBI.
Rachel Freed, CBI.
David Owen, Concord Scout House.
Malcolm Bryant. Sven Vivo.
Bill Cremeza.
Jeff Collins is here.
Excellent. Okay.
And
So,
Jeff Quick, I see online too.
Oh, good. So we have a quorum now with Jeff Collins at the moment? Yeah.
mhm. Okay, so, our main goal for tonight's meeting is to, really utilize this time to break out into our groups and share, what's going on with our groups. And, you can see I can't see the agenda on the slide.
Again. There we go.
There it is. So the first thing we have is, so the minutes of the meeting from September 26th just went out today. So I would have to assume that hardly anybody has read them yet. So I'm gonna suggest that we table
Yeah.
taking a vote on them until next time. Is that agreeable to everybody?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
makes sense. Good.
Very good. Okay, and, the meeting is, so we'll open the meeting to public comment in a few minutes. And then at the end of the meeting, we will also have, public comments. And this meeting is being recorded and a video link will be posted to the task force website, within a few days. So since we don't have, we'll go right into public comments then, Bill?
Sure, just the same as always. Be respectful in your comments to the public. Avoid any personal attacks and please keep your comments to no more than 2 minutes. Anybody, any members of the public, want to speak? And of course, you have to identify yourself, as always.
Is Mary Weinberg,
Yeah.
Hillside Avenue. I have just something to hand out tonight, because all of you aren't here, I wanted more people to be here, because this is really important, so I hope I'll be able to continue the next time, but I ran these all up today, in 1983.
Mhm.
A group of citizens put together the West Concord report, and I don't know if any of you are aware of this. That's why I thought it was important. That's why if I could next time hand it out, I'll just read to you the historical information. It said historical development, Concord Junction or Warnersville, Westville or Damondale, and Prison Village were all villages in the part of town which came to be called West Concord. On the Shelburne Brook near Kenny Dunn Square, where Commonwealth Avenue crosses the stream, a dam was built and a mill constructed in the 1660s, which served several of the settlers' needs. The water-powered mill ground grain, sawed lumber, and was used for fulling cloth, a process by which the fabrics which were woven by women in the homes were thickened. So this was for the settlers' needs. And I spent time today to make copies, so I made 11 copies. If you could hand it around, and then the extra, and if I could, the others who come, because nobody knows about this, and I was telling Delia, I felt like kind of crying, because one of the people on that report was Carol Dwyer, who now doesn't remember any of it, and I told Delia that all of the people I knew who did all that are either dead or moved or they're gone. So this is hard for me. But the thing is that if I don't, maybe it was meant to be that I pass this on, because nobody knows about, this is how big the report was, and Nate is trying to find it in the digital file, so you can all get the whole thing. And the reason why they put it together was for something like this. When you do any project, you learn about the history, and I'm not going to go into detail because I want to tell everybody next week, but I just learned about Ann Thorpe's book. Do you know all have this book? Does
No.
everybody have
No.
this?
No.
See, this is why I have to speak again. I went to a West Concord study group, whatever they're called, and I asked Ann to come. She did a survey for the whole town and was paid to do a whole survey of the whole town and West Concord. She started in 87, ended up in 95 for this reason. And she came to the meeting and she was shocked that nobody knew about the book. She said, this is what we did it for. The town paid for it. There's a history of Concord and West Concord, and again, the dam is mentioned being built, you know, in the 1600s. So it's very sad, and she was very, very upset that the town isn't using this. And Elizabeth went to the, you know, closet, and she had a bunch of them. So Marcia knew about it, but somehow, and the Historic Commission, the word's not getting out. So I met with Ann Clifford, and we tried to work out how this can never happen again, how, like Delia, you know about it, so you could give it to everybody, so the town, the committees. Anyway, I will talk more about this, but it makes me very sad that nobody knows about this book, and Ann and I felt that someday everybody will know about the Blue Book. Because all of the survey and history is in here, and about the dam, you would have known it's from the 1600s for the settlers. So this one, I'm just gonna quickly say, my good friend, Joanne Lloyd, put her heart and soul into this with Dan Monahan,
No, it's the-
and she died. And she died before, and then I don't know what happened to it, so she was working so hard, you know, in the 2000s, to bring forth the importance of Warner's Pond and the upkeep. So Delia has these, and Delia was very nice to give me. So if you don't have them, I assume Delia gave you all these, because this is the thing that I'm sad is that these people put all their work in, and Joanne, you know, she's not alive, and she worked so hard for loving one, and she worked with Dan Monahan, and this was paid by the town and the Historic Commission, but all these proposed improvements and analyzing everything. Sad night, okay. I'll come to your next meeting and I'll say this again and other things I have to say, but that's it for tonight.
Thank
okay?
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Forbes' book, is that in the planning office?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and if you could all tell Anne, because she was gonna order more. She said she could print more.
I can
Okay.
get
That'd
copies.
be great.
Yeah.
So can I ask us a clarification? So what do we have as a committee have established as the dam's earliest date? I thought we're operating with an early 19th century date.
We did, that's what Ann Clifford suggested, I think. We always know it was a 19th century, 1850 present.
Right, so there were activities on Neshoba Brook for the fulling mill, but there was not a lot of damming until a little bit later. I don't know the exact date, but there was a small dam that was created 2 logs high or something like that.
19, something.
That might have been, we can get those dates.
Right.
And in fact, if you look through on the task force website, Anne has a series of maps and,
I remember them, yeah.
Right.
That's why I was just trying
So
to.
Yeah, no, we
I'm
don't
just
have
kind of
one
like,
date, though. Yeah.
what is our date that we're operating
Well,
under the understanding of?
question.
Yeah.
To one.
I mean,
Yeah.
in its current configuration, as we know the pond today,
Mhm.
that was Ralph Warner in the 1850s.
Okay,
Well, it's written in here.
Yeah,
You
Well,
just have to read the sentence.
that's why I'm bringing this
Yeah.
forward.
So it's.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry to cut in,
So-
but I'm gonna go, but this is why I'm bringing it forward. Ann didn't know this. Ann didn't know about this. That's why I'm bringing this forward.
Thank you. So we're gonna say, Sven, what does it say? What is?
Yeah, it says it's, so in 1857, Mr. Ralph Warner purchased the property and developed a woodware factory. The dam was enlarged, creating the Warner's Pond.
Okay,
Yeah, so before that, there was a small dam and some pipes, but this was
Mhm.
not creating a pond
Mhm.
before that point.
Right.
So that's at least what is
okay,
represented in this year. Of course, we don't know the sources and we don't know what.
exactly.
And I'm gonna go now, but Ann Clifford, Ann Forbes felt that first dam, which the settlers built, there possibly could be archaeological, you know, things there. And she's gonna work with me because she feels this is all National Register, possibly the National Register, but the settlers, but she feels it still is there. So I thought you all could know, because that first dam was built like less than 30 years, 25 years after they founded Concord. So it's important.
Good, thank you. Any other public comments? No, I guess not. So,
Okay.
So we
we're intending to spend, basically most of the meeting today, just doing work group sessions, and then having them report back. So we're right on schedule. We're planning to start these at 6:15 and then go till 7. Then do 30 minutes of checking in, give work groups a chance to share with the large group any items that they want support on or want to get feedback on, and then we'll move into our final agenda item, which is task force member topics of interest, and we know of a few of them. We can share a little bit of what we heard about the public meeting and public input from the survey and some other items during that session. So our suggestion is we go ahead and go to breakouts, unless Bill, you want to say something?
One small thing, since I know our group is pretty small, it's David and myself, I wonder how much time every group needs now, given how
Mhm.
that some of them just met yesterday. I mean, it was a great, I'm just curious, do everyone need 45 minutes or do they need less time at this moment?
I think we could use it.
I was gonna say, I think
Oh,
we
you
could,
can
yeah.
use it? Okay, good,
Yeah.
okay,
We could use
great.
it.
Oh, you can use it. So we'll amuse ourselves, we'll figure out something to do. Go for a cup of coffee or something.
I'd also like to just let everyone know, I'm here, I'm en route 2, I'll be there in about 10 minutes.
Great,
Great,
Bruce.
That's great,
All right,
Bruce.
great
Thank
to
you.
know. Okay, so just in terms of how this is gonna work, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna open some breakout rooms right now. So folks online, you can stay in the main room for now, but you should have an option to go to one of 3 different breakout rooms. And you can see they have names according to our 3 work groups. There's a dredging breakout room, a dam removal breakout room, a no action or short-term actions room. And just say the short-term actions room or no action room sounds like it's not gonna have many folks in it, all right?
Well, I'm curious, is Bert gonna be joining us, do you know, or is he just,
He's online.
is he online?
He
Okay,
will be.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
He is.
good
So-
for him. That's good.
So,
Yep.
yeah, we'll have each of those groups, you can join it online. We will have a laptop that is gonna travel with the work groups here in person so that folks online can observe if you're a member of the public or participate if you're a task force member. And obviously, I think it's basically up to the work groups if you want to have public comment in those sessions as well, right? It's, work group choice,
Right.
okay?
Good point.
But members of the public will definitely at least be able to observe. And we'll reconvene at 7 o'clock. So let's just say, where are we gonna meet in here, in the floor here? Because we're gonna be in separate spaces. Yeah, you have a question?
Yeah, that might
Okay.
precede that. So if it's just the 2 of us.
Well, your Bert is.
Bert.
Oh,
All right, yeah.
Bert's
Bert's
online, yeah.
online.
Plus,
But he's
someone online
coming.
needs to be able to.
Okay,
if they
well,
want
that's what I
observe.
wanted to
Yeah,
ask
yeah,
about,
yeah.
so,
Okay.
yeah.
So we do need to make it accessible, for people online as well, so.
So no going for.
I know,
You
we
can-
can't, must have a drink or something.
Julie, where would you suggest,
Phone, bring the phone with you.
Julie, where would you suggest the other 2 groups meet?
So I think the larger groups, one should meet in here and one should meet up on the second floor and would
This is just Bert's office.
yeah,
There's only 3, it's only 2 of us plus Bert online.
Bert, you okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay.
They need some of the laptop.
So yeah, we can bring a laptop with them. So we'll get one of the laptops to go with you. So your group will be up in Bert's office. Another group will be in the second floor. Which group wants to go on the second floor? I guess whoever's a little bit smaller, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, so dredging is gonna go up onto the second floor.
Oh, no, sorry, dredging, yes.
Yeah, dredging.
Well, welcome to Switch.
All the merrier.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
And Bruce is on his way and that's fine. That's good.
all right. So yeah, why don't you guys go ahead and go upstairs, and
Good.
we're gonna, open up the breakout room, so go ahead, members of the public, and enter whichever breakout room you're most interested in.
And someone's gonna set us up before,
Yeah, well, Rachel and I'll take care of it. So, actually, Julia, you're gonna be going up, you'll bring your laptop, right? And
Yes.
reconnect and go into the breakout.
Yeah, I know.
Did you bring any cookies?
Come March, no,
Yeah, I'll use mine.
December, that's when I'll be in Ricky, yeah, I don't care. I don't see your room now.
I'll go with the group upstairs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll stay.
So you go into the, do not see the breakout room?
I have not had a chance to look at anything that came through, so I didn't look at what Jeff, what you wrote, I didn't look at the quote.
Yeah, printed it, understood.
I didn't even.
Take a look tonight.
You wanna join, this is,
Yeah, I haven't had it, I've been a little bit.
So just
Yeah.
perhaps in the beginning, we're just trying to summarize where we left it last time.
Okay.
In that sense that we had an Excel file with the numbers we did.
Let's take the set back.
Yeah, I looked at it,
Yeah, thank
I kind of cannot.
Okay, so members of the public, you can go ahead and, join the breakout room.
Okay,
Okay, if you're interested.
so it looks correct, but it was your handwriting in the original one, Jeff. But I think her Excel file looks correct
Yeah.
in the point.
Yeah, I'll give that another.
So, and then if you do just a little check on summing up the points. And was clear kind of the difference between the good loan option and then the middle option is kind of marginal, like a 0.5 points difference.
Yeah.
Not accounting for the financial part.
Right.
That's the big thing we left out. So there was clearly from all this, not a big difference between the middle scenario and the big scenario.
Right.
Yeah.
Biggest step up was really between just removing the dam, doing nothing and going to some amenities there. So if you look at that,
Should we angle that so that Stan and Malcolm are also, we've been however.
yeah, so if you look at that to summarize, it would be, it comes down to in the end to what is financially feasible between option 1 and 2.
Right,
Yeah.
do we have, Rachel, do you know if we have members of the public joining us here?
There is at least one member of the public that signed in.
Sorry, member of the public, I just want to make sure. No, I only see.
Oh,
Oh, hey, great. Carlin's here. So just for Carlin's benefit, we met last Tuesday.
Yeah.
And we went through 3 scenarios, simple dam removal, take the dam down and kind of let it bed in. Dam removal with robust amenities. And then dam removal with robust amenities and some dredging to encourage channel formation in a place we want it, especially along the Commonwealth Ave input. And so last Tuesday in that meeting, we put together a matrix based on our criteria, our evaluation criteria, and the 5 of us evaluated those on a scale of 1 to 3, with 1 meeting all conditions, 2 meeting, some, and 3 really not doing a good job on that criterion. And that's what Malcolm's referring to, is that Vicky had summarized those up in an Excel sheet, sent those out. And here we are discussing.
yeah, and that
them
was
again.
still subject to the price tag.
Right,
Because we didn't have any ideas on the price last time, so. For me, this is at the moment, at least a certain direction I took away from, and I don't know how you feel, is that in the end. I felt like it's clearly coming out, it's dam removal with some amenities. And how many these are would be a question of pricing and permitting.
so should we, based on that, would you propose that we not contemplate the supplemental dredging at all?
It would seem that the supplemental dredging doesn't add anything.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, so please, yeah. Hang on to this.
I would only go
It
the
was
dredging,
I think.
It's weird, 'cause I'm-
the dredging part. And also the stabilization part, if we see that is kind of, when this forms, when nature does its thing, when it forms, that there is.
Yeah,
the
we are
risk
open.
to property.
Everyone's here in my history.
Whoever is online.
I don't think anybody's in our,
Can you?
Oh,
I have
This
to
is that
get into
Julia's-
our room,
Julia,
actually. I
can you
think I'm
do
in a
this now?
different.
No,
Okay,
they just jumped into
Okay.
the,
so that,
Wrong
so
breakout.
if, I think that we have to clearly document that, it's, there's always a risk that nature is doing its thing and suddenly. It takes a different path over
Mhm.
time,
Mhm.
perhaps not initially. So that the town needs to plan or be prepared that if you see there is change in how the channel goes and it's something that is putting risk to
Mm.
property
Right.
and safety. That there is some kind of a safety buffer in a budget, just, or at least in some kind of funding in a town, that if something goes wrong, there is
Yeah,
something available.
yeah, in the 30% design, there's some budget information as well, and they also include this adaptive management plan, like for a period to
Yeah.
monitor,
Yeah.
respond to any issues. And I glanced, but didn't look at what came today and whether that.
I didn't see
includes a
adaptive
line.
management plan code on this.
No, I
This was
didn't.
purely taking it down.
Yeah.
I think on that is a $1.1 million quote to take it down and do some stuff.
Yeah,
But it's definitely not amenities and so on. It was not what they were asked for. I think is the one question we need for us in general is to know is like, how much is the potential that the state is chipping in? So if you look at what happened in Acton, it was about 80 to 85% of the cost was taken over by the
Yeah.
state.
Mhm.
So we have to make some assumption to say
Yes.
it might be something in the order of
Mm.
magnitude of 80%.
Yeah.
But that we also say it's like, this is a potential cash. Budget for the town is 1.1 million, but potentially just 20% of that.
Yeah.
Um,
That's something that, just a note we could,
I started looking at some of the list of things and now I can't find where I put it. I didn't get very far.
just that we could do some research, have a phone call with DER, the Division of Ecological Restoration, or ask.
yeah, I looked what
Yeah,
Acton
others
did,
to sort
what
of-
Acton got, and it was about 85%.
Hmm.
Delia can give us probably some information.
We had asked her for the list of things that
Yeah.
had come out of it, so she had sent that to me.
But even if it's just 50%.
Yeah.
It's definitely reducing the price tag
Yep,
below $1 million.
yep.
Yeah.
So thanks for that, Sven, and for going through the matrix, which we need to use because we put good time into it.
And I think it was a good exercise.
Yeah, very good. Healthy. Just to catch up on what we have since then, so we have our matrix scoring in the spreadsheet, we have Vicky's minutes. And then I told you I'd get to this early in the week, but it just came today, so, and I only printed out 2 copies because then my wife had a meeting and.
I printed out.
Oh, good. And Ben said that my conversion issues may have caused some
At least
some
my
layout
word.
formatting issue. But what this was, is taking that sort of proposal template and trying to cram everything we've talked about into place for purposes of discussion, draft version for like, no, remember we decided to move that or change this or add this. And here's another version someone could look at. And then I reference an appendix in there that's not in the file, but is, are these 4 pages from a document, I think on the Mass Wildlife website. This printing isn't very good, but references a number of grant programs that are, you know,
Yeah, because I think these are
useful
big
for-
things. 'Cause I have on my list, I found where I put it. I have the dam or seawall repair, Massachusetts Environmental Trust. Municipal vulnerability preparedness.
and this document, which I'll link you to, then has another 8 pages that has a paragraph on each of these sources, so.
Is there any information about timelines? It's like
For these applications,
for these applications to get stuff done, I assume that if you, let's say, would do the decision today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
take
it'll-
That
that-
thing down. How long does it go through? We need to get in line with Massachusetts.
Yep.
To get the funding. We are not an emergency case.
Yeah.
So,
and these, the way I've observed dam removal happen, or a lot of restoration projects are, especially ones that require outside funding, like the ones we were doing at Mass Audubon, include, you know, it's kind of iterative, like, we're gonna have to get a grant to do the study,
Yeah.
the initial, and then the 30% design, and then do the permitting, and so each of those does have to wait for the next round of funding, or
until the planets align for some funding. And so another aspect of these restoration projects, even though Sumco says we can mobilize in the summer, I think next summer would be like, well, it would be impossible
Yeah.
given like town meeting and all that stuff. So yes, then you'd have to kind of, if the deadline was September 1st, then you'd have to wait for next year. But I think there are a lot of
Is there
these sources.
anything we can assume? Is this a 3 to 5 year project?
I'd say the shorter end. of that.
Short end,
Yeah, I would hope 2 to 3, but.
Because we've already done a lot of the work and the town has the money to do the design. The town will.
The only
the town is
concern I
permitting.
have is that what we heard, that the state probably prioritizes these projects
Mhm.
with respect to emergency, age and so on. This dam is probably the youngest on the list.
Right, and I think that that's just one source of funding.
Yeah.
Of course. There's a growing amount of funding for restoring fisheries and.
A lot of the things on this list were around fisheries, not
Right.
even around like.
Yeah,
So I think NOAA maybe, and that was Joe saying that Division of Ecological Restoration, they. You know, they've got those 3,000 dams, they've got to prioritize their limited staff time and they tend to focus on the high risk ones. And there was one mention. I think in the 30% design plan that DER ranks this dam in the 60th percentile of sort of benefit.
right.
But Division of Marine Fisheries or NOAA may say like, once Talbot Mills comes down, this is like, our next it may be. It may
Right, and
fit
like,
their measurement.
so one of the things I looked at I don't remember what the acronym is, USWFS, so their program is the National Fish Passage Program, and they provided almost $1 million for the
Mhm.
Talbot Mill Dam, so
Mhm.
like.
Yeah.
Feels like that would,
Fish and Wildlife Service is that.
Yeah,
Um,
right, it would change the priority
Yeah.
when that dam is
Right.
done. And we do the next.
Yeah, so would we want to look at this draft document and provide feedback? That's just the table of funding. So now
Right.
can you have
Okay,
the
so-
10-pager
Yes, I do.
that oh no, Sven, what's the printed copy?
So will they, looking at the NOAA information here, they're obviously looking for things in the Endangered Species Act. Would that include the wood turtles? Or are they just listed as,
Yeah.
They are not they're not federally protected,
okay,
but I do think they'd be very interested in benefits to the anadromous fish. I will send you all a link to that PDF document of the funding sources.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'd love to you said you were able to open that document I sent today.
Yeah.
Great.
it looks fine to me.
yeah, I think when I get on my computer, I'll look my.
And in
Think yours on the
mine,
map.
I had certain circles.
Oh, yeah.
These-
There was-
these
Oh,
circles
your
yeah,
stuff
yeah,
on
yeah.
Giroux.
Where-
There was, I ended up typing and changing the formatting and that the circle stayed in place as some of the graphic.
And then I had some text underneath the graphic. That's
Yeah.
how it looked on my Word. But again, I have an Apple version of Word, so.
I need to,
Wait, do we all have the Apple version? I would be looking at this on a Mac at home, so you could just,
yeah.
Send it
Pages,
as the
I
Mac.
had it in
Yeah.
pages, yeah.
yeah.
We all
Okay.
make people here.
Great. And I will send another email with that updated.
Thank you for doing this, though. It's a
Yeah, and
heck
I've
of
just
a lot of
been
work.
needing
So how do you
to-
want to guide us through this?
Well, yeah, let's do that and I'll send out the other version. When we get through this. So again, I operated with the template. I couldn't find our old template that Rachel and Toby had distributed, so I operated from the template, the document we received from the
Right.
short-term solutions
That's
group.
interesting, because I was looking for it today and I couldn't find it.
We'll send it out again.
Okay, hopefully it's.
We all know you sent it.
Yeah, I know.
We
It's on-
obviously
it's on us.
did.
So weird.
But that's exactly what I was about
Yeah.
to do, as I was starting to think about it, was use the no action groups.
So if they customize anything from the template that went out, this is based on their template, and we could, you know, we've got proposal description and then, proposal implementation details. We might decide like it's kind of repetitive. Let's all make this one thing. But let's look at the proposal description first, top of the first page. Tell me if 1 through 7, if that, you know, if there are any major components missing there or elements that we've decided not to include or we
Well, didn't we say that we were not going to do the limited dredging?
That's what we
Establish the
just
stream
talked
channel.
about here, yeah. So what I was operating on, and this is, I'm not putting a stake in the sand here, but was the idea that we would kind of list as many things as we wanted, we get the prices on it, we prioritize things, then we start lopping off.
Yeah, I think that's probably the last
To our
priority,
house,
but I
right?
think, yeah.
So, but if we as a group say, because we went through the scoring and we said this dredging would definitely be additional cost, but marginal
Mm,
added benefit, you know, as a group, we can decide that that's a push. We also,
Can we mark it as an optional?
or why don't we put the proposal description, and I will say in order of priority. And I would put, then we
And
can,
then put that last.
yeah. And I'm gonna
And
do
then maybe
it,
put a note there that like, we feel like the cost it will be only a marginal, just to remember why it's less than.
in order of, let's say, of cost benefit priority. With that in mind, would we, how would we order,
If you order with cost benefit, then probably the panels, historic interpretation panels.
sure,
Right?
Yeah, low cost.
Well, and then the adaptive management plan, I think is,
That's a must.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's probably, I actually
Yes.
think that's probably number 2.
Yeah. Yeah, 1 is the removal, 2 is adaptive management plan. 3 is historic interpretation panels. And then. Same order till we have at the end, the limited dredging.
yeah. Could I just wonder, on the very first one, where it said, complete the removal of the dam as illustrated. I wonder if it would be valuable, you know, in this proposal from whoever they are, Scott Brady, Sumco, to actually list the 8 steps that they have in there. Because I know when we were talking about it last week,
I think we put that in the detail.
we could. We could. I was just thinking of how Vicky was mentioning sort of, oh, well, we're gonna have to do draining. No, what was it? We're gonna have to do some dredging and whatever, because that was in the recommendation.
Oh,
And
when
we
we
had
talked about
quite a lot
underneath
of
the bridge.
discussion as to whether that will be separate or as part of it. And this is very clear that it's actually part of it.
Yeah, I would put that part, use 1 to 8, I think it is,
Hmm,
into the proposal implementation details.
that's fine.
and say that again, Malcolm, sorry,
Well, in this Sumco thing, there are 8 steps. So mobilization, clearing of trees, to stage it, installing water control in 2 phases, demolish the existing concrete structures, dispose of the materials, including non-contaminated excavation, disposal of existing earthen boom, as shown, restore the site with loam seed. Look, actually, it doesn't go into quite the same detail that my imagination told me it did. Maybe that's in here, but they do. So yes, so in the budget here, they've got a line item for the sediment disposal, unclassified fill disposal, river restoration, site restoration. Those just seemed to be things that it was unclear whether they would be in the budget for the dam or not, from
Right.
what we were seeing, and it would be nice not to have people in
Second
doubt.
guess, yeah.
Okay, so that will go in there. I would have a question from them, what they mean by river restoration. Is
Yeah.
that
I think it's
just
hardly the same.
upstream, just,
But so they're touching the area where the dam is, plus a little bit more, and they put temporary. Stuff there for the heavy machinery, so all of that needs to be
the banks,
restored.
they need to create the banks there.
I think it,
Does it
I
really
can't
depend
quite
on-
get this oriented correctly now, but it's that way. I thought I understood it, but maybe I don't.
They're building an artificial bank here.
Yeah, well, this is the coffer dam, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so then they're going to take away the spillway.
Yeah.
And obviously this one as well, because they've got a separate coffer dam there. Then they're going to,
Then they rebuild this backwards.
rebuild it back.
No, so
But they're going to
remove
remove it, yeah.
then they have to rebuild the river banks here.
Yes. Yeah, at the actual dam site, they're gonna have to be some choice as to where is the stream gonna go.
Right.
And certainly where the current spillway is, that's bedrock.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that would actually end up being a high point, because I don't know with the berm, whether it's on bedrock or
Mhm.
I'm sure the design tells us.
Okay, so,
Make it sound as though I know what I'm talking about, and I really don't.
all right, so down under the detailed section, I'll just break out those elements from Sumco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. Then,
So who would be the adaptive management plan?
yeah, all right, so back to our list here. Then historic interpretation panels, low cost and valuable, high impact. Then I think water accessibility, does that make sense? Accessible docks at Commonwealth F Access Point in Giroux Park. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry.
At
Yes.
least one other fishing wildlife viewing platform, that's all crammed into one
Yeah, I
thing.
think that was, though, especially having that viewing platform was a point for a lot of our things. There was the multi-generational stuff,
Right,
there
yeah.
was the social aspects that, so I think that's a very important.
Yes, yeah.
And where do we picture that? In my mind, that was still a little hand wavy. Is that,
I thought of it up, where the current undeveloped site is. If you follow that bank around, you've got a sort of a bit of upland, which would be even more upland after they drain the pond. And that would be a fairly good site to be above the level of the emergent marshes. And also of the old marshes, and so, I mean, this is where you're gonna see a lot of.
Where?
Right, so if you flood all of it's here, it would be roughly there. If you look on that,
on the west side of the pond?
yeah,
Yeah.
because that would enable you, because you're high, so you should be able to look back there. You should be able to look in that direction.
So that square, in my mind, is in the middle of
Hmm.
marsh.
No. If you,
Do you mean off of Pond Street?
no, it's a little bit further round. This is,
Oh, that
this is
peninsula.
currently wooded.
Yeah, that peninsula.
Land.
Got
Yeah.
it, got it, got it.
And that's just the only one I thought of, but it would be useful to have maybe another.
Mhm.
But that at least gives you a vision across there and a vision across there. It obscures most of the building development.
Mhm.
So, that seems a good thing. And it seems to me that this is probably the areas where you're gonna see the most bird life.
Yeah.
Whatever, and potentially wildlife on that
So-
side.
I think we have one question. although at least I have one question is, so the select board just approved some ARPA funding for work on accessibility from the road park over the building something from the road park. There was also some mentioning of kind of a platform
Mhm.
walk or whatever.
Mm.
And that's separate from
So
the recreation department CPC plan? It's all fungible, I
this
suppose,
is,
yeah.
I think it's just trying to collect money, but in the end, I have no idea where these different activities in the
Yeah.
end come together and who's
Maybe
making what
the-
decisions here.
Maybe like this water access point at Giroux. Could that serve all of these purposes, or the problem I have, the concern I'd have with that site, Malcolm,
Mhm.
is that you'd also need this new trail out that
Yes,
peninsula,
well, I guess
which.
what
I'm
I
not-
have thought is,
which I'm a
okay, we've
fan
got the
of,
new
but-
trail out here, it's gonna, I think when we drew it out, it was, I'm sorry, I'm drawing all over your things.
No,
So we're gonna need a bridge there.
Yeah.
And another bridge there, was it?
Yeah, we're gonna need like a long
Something
raised
like that,
boardwalk,
yeah.
I think.
So that gives the opportunity to have a side trail that comes out to that, that was.
Yeah.
But I'm not vested in any of
I mean,
this.
I feel like in terms of accessibility, having one at the end of Pond Street is gonna
Mm.
be
Very easy.
very easy. And
Mm.
accessibility both for the installation of it and for people to get to it.
Yeah.
Mm, true.
Cause I do think you want something on the western half, cause we have Giroux is kind of northeast,
That's right.
the pocket park.
Spreads
is-
the wealth.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I'm not too sure how useful, if Giroux is going to be heavily used, which I guess we hope it will be.
Absolutely.
Observation decks, well, depends on what you're observing, I suppose, doesn't it? In a lot of ways, I was thinking of this little thing over here as being more like the bird watchers. and
Yeah.
Almost like a blind rather than
Like,
an
like,
observation.
like the observation thing on Great Meadows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we think that, this is sort of either an alternative site or an additional
and then
amenity?
maybe additional extra site. if
We've
time
talked-
was-
We've talked about the sort of the vicinity of the existing dam. I don't know if you feel, because you're right there, or the neighbors feel like, that public access is a pain, or it's something that's fine and people should use, or
I
there's,
think everyone who lives there expects people to kind of be around there. I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, I think I have a different experience on my half of the block
Yeah.
because we're right by the dam and so many people fish off of it. Like,
yeah.
there are constantly people going through my backyard, Paul and Chris's backyard.
This,
Should I wait out there till 7?
I'm sorry, this is like the big Warner's Pond Task Force is broken into work groups probably until 7 or 7:15 or something, but. And you were gonna
Till
make a
7.
presentation, or?
The historic district?
No.
No, it
No.
must be a different building, I'm sorry. Yeah,
We have till 7.
okay,
What is the time?
Quarter.
all right, well, the location of that, I guess we can
Yeah.
nail down or throw it out.
Yeah, I think we can have like a
that would
list of
be
like where we think
a
and why we
PBD.
think these.
Yeah.
Location.
Like, cause I do think it would be interesting to have something a little further out, a little bit more remote feeling. It's just that in terms
Right.
of the cost benefit, like how much is it?
So yeah, it's number 4, again, we've got dam removal, number 1, adaptive management plan, that's necessary, number 2. Number 3, low cost, high benefit, historic interpretation panels.
Mhm.
Number 4, accessible docks at Com Ave and Giroux Park.
Mhm.
We've got this fishing wildlife viewing platform. I've been using that terminology kind of.
Mhm.
fishing slash
Yeah,
wildlife.
yeah.
Well, if it's not overlooking open water, that's not as good for fishing, obviously.
And it's really good
Right.
at casting.
Then my current list, I've got improved parking at Com Ave,
That I think is a very
Yeah,
high point, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, the sense that I get, is that's something that people have been asking for a very long time,
so maybe like this improvement at Com Ave
is a separate
could be a
point.
comprehensive thing, like parking
I think that makes sense.
improved
So that's
either.
for the boat access, or what is that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for boat
Yeah.
access.
Yeah, pull out the accessible docks and have just like a general comment point
Okay,
or comment, yeah.
okay, improvements. On that public access. Including. And water access. And then for all of you, I'd look for help on as to, does that presume a dock at Giroux? Or if the water was close enough, is that sort of gravel access adequate?
I just, I can't remember now, did the application to sorry. I'm rapidly developing Alzheimer's here.
The
Um,
CPC,
yeah, right, the application to the CPC, did that include putting a dock in
at
I
Giroux,
thought it did,
yeah,
yes.
it talked about.
Planning for,
Planning, yeah.
planning
for some water access structure,
Right,
design to react to whatever recommendation we come up with.
right, so in that case, we wouldn't need to specify that because somebody else is doing
I think
it?
it's worth putting it in there that like, we think it's important to have this here to make that, for these reasons. It's already like in the works,
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
And then.
in a way that kind of allows for
Mhm.
dam removal.
And we say we have, oh, the money's here, whether it's from ARPA or
Yes,
CPC.
okay, that sounds
Yeah.
good. I
Um,
understand.
Then trail connections. I think there's really high benefit, but it's low here because it's kind of, it would be costly. And then dredging, does that make sense?
I think that makes sense, yeah.
And for the trails, maybe we don't need to suborder these, but I've got trail kind of giving access down to the cornfields. Then I've got a restored trail connection over to Wright Road.
Mhm.
I mean,
I think
that,
it makes sense to
that
order
gives-
that, so we can kind of think through the different pieces of
Yeah.
it. I have a question for you guys.
and then, sorry, then the final one was the trail connection from the cornfields took down to Lawsbrook Road.
Yes,
But
Yeah.
that would be an expensive
That's
raised
expensive.
boardwalk and then new trails on that peninsula.
yeah,
The cornfield trails, because when the day I walked through it, there's that apiary there. Is that where we're thinking about having that? Because that was terrifying to walk through the day I walked there. There were so many bees. I mean, and I'm not someone who's scared of bees, but they were like landing on me.
they probably, I mean, that apiary comes and goes. I haven't seen it there for about 5 or 6 years. It used to be there.
They used to be up in the northwest corner.
Yeah,
that's
when I did my like little walk around like a month or so ago.
No,
there was-
I
yeah.
understand people have difficulty. I'm a beekeeper, so I
Yeah.
don't have, but I understand that
Yeah.
it's pretty scary.
Yeah, it is like, I'm trying to think about like, if, I'm also just trying to think, is that where we're thinking about the trail? Because if we are. I don't know if we like,
I think there's two options. One is trying as best as possible to keep it on the east side of the cornfields, to have
Okay.
as many views
Yeah.
and as much of a connection to the pond as possible.
yeah,
The other is to project further out Bruce Freeman and then go perpendicular
Yeah.
right
Right.
down the middle.
yeah, I just
'cause
think
that'd
we
be
wanna
easy.
think about that, like, 'cause like I said, I'm not generally someone who's scared of bees, but there were so
People-
many and they're like landing on
yeah.
my, and like my father-in-law, like, there are people with.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
people are
so
allergic.
It's a broader, raises a broader point though, that we don't have access
Yeah.
to the field.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
that would be a negotiation, but it
Yeah.
would be nice to push for, especially now we're in the conversation with DOC and everything on
Yeah.
the
So I just,
Mm,
yeah,
prison
just-
site.
I keep on needing to like ask about it. And
So that's really helpful to order those. Then please describe your proposal. What are its key elements? So again, this may be redundant or
Well, I think this is
maybe
where
this
you
just
can-
becomes more of a narrative or
Yeah, I
something.
think this is where you can put in what Malcolm was talking about before, about what the steps are associated with
Right.
the.
And then if you would, we can do as much as we can now in 9 minutes, but if you'd all go through and either, mark this up, again, I'll send it out as a,
yeah,
pages document or something like that, which I'm operating with. To track changes, and if you think with the way I've summarized our conversation about against the criteria. if I've claimed something that we haven't agreed to, or we're missing anything, or you disagree with anything, just mark that up. And then if you think any of these graphics are not helpful, or we could use more, them as well. Oh yeah, this graphics really got screwed up, sorry.
Yeah, I think the only thing is because we didn't have the information on fiscal sustainability. You can add at least the base price tag for dam removal.
Right.
In response to something somebody said at our last meeting about, because we had quite a lot of discussion about restoring the pond to its to the way it was prior to colonialism, and somebody made a comment that that was just a pipe dream because it wouldn't.
Can't step in the same river twice.
Yeah, I don't think, I really think we should get a Native American perspective on that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry.
That's quite the.
I have a theme song too, I like that, yeah.
Sorry, can I, it's my
Yeah, for sure.
daughter, and I don't know why she's calling.
Yeah, I think I know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Someone, yeah, I
I,
mean,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think there is like a. It's obviously, it's not, yes, I think what she's saying is very true. It can't romanticize the idea of having some sort of. Like, it's gonna be exactly how it is. There was not development there last time. It's going to be different, but I don't think that negates the idea of trying to get things into a more natural
Yeah.
state. I don't, but like, I do think there is like sort of a general, like trying to romanticize the idea of being back to what things used to be like. So I do think it's important to be like, we're not trying to do that.
Yeah.
We're not like romanticizing this ideal that existed hundreds of years ago. However, it's also important to like let nature run its course a bit.
Yeah.
Does that,
Yeah, I
I don't,
think-
that's kind of what I was thinking about when she was saying that.
Yeah, with restoration, we talk about process-based restoration, so we can't get back to a point in time, we can't recreate all the pieces, all the extinct species that were here one time. Or even the human patterns surrounding the landscape, but we can reintroduce the, fish passage. We've spoken a lot about migratory fish passages, the sedimentary patterns that we spoke about last time. More natural water temperatures, flood regimes, things like that. So these processes that characterize a healthy ecosystem and that we can try to restore.
Can I ask I don't know, perhaps the elephant in the room question? Is there a silver bullet we can use, or several silver bullets we can use to make this attractive for the Friends of Warner Pond? Or are we just dead on arrival no matter what we propose?
Yeah, I feel like Vicky's gonna be the person who can best answer
Okay.
that.
But in the end, we all putting a lot of time into
As well.
this, yeah?
But like within our subgroup, I think
Yeah.
Vicky's best.
Yeah, it's a good test.
Yeah.
It's,
Cause I was looking back at our ranking, the matrix as I glanced at it today. And, surprised because I was there. I was like, we were a lot of ones.
Yeah.
Across the board.
what
and
is
we were
comparing
amongst ourselves.
amongst ourselves,
Oh,
not
but I was-
comparing to the other, but if you're doing mentally the comparison against the other two scenarios.
Well, so, but your point is well taken, like what are we missing anything here?
Yeah.
That would be a feasible add to
That would
address. any-
address certain concerns.
Yeah.
Would you mind if the facilitator in the room just offered a thought about what? you
Not at
just-
all.
Please do.
Love it.
It's a great process, great conversation. I think that the question that Sven raises is crucial, right? It's gotta be a part of the next stage of the task force's work. And I would encourage you not to defer it, not to defer the answer to people who are more in the Friends group. I would encourage you to use your own understanding of what you've you know, putting yourselves in their perspective, you know enough to use that. Doesn't mean that it will be the ultimate outcome, but
Yeah.
use your own, it's okay to use your own guesstimates, right, and your own like gut about what's gonna fly, what isn't, and then you can include the other voices when they're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we don't,
Don't dodge it.
yeah, but we
Don't
don't have
dodge
the
it.
time anyway now, but it could be something
Yeah.
for our next meeting. And I agree, Vicky is important on this.
So, let me toss out one thing that I didn't get to this section of here, which is what ideas have we tossed out?
Mhm.
What are we discussing and haven't included? And one of our early conversations, I threw out the idea of the rock ramp. This idea that instead of the dam, you, in the restoration, you create a series of sort of stone, not barriers, but horizontal riffles or
Yeah.
whatever, so that the, you know, the stream falls more gradually, but fish could make it upstream. And that would result in the water level of former future Warner's Pond maybe still being lower than it is now, but being held a little bit higher than if it was just dam removal back to a natural stream. Where personally, I'm like, that's a compromise, I feel, because the more water above that section held in the pond in the open water creates more of that potential weedy habitat. The water is resident in a little bit more time, so it warms up a little bit more and it pulls more of those nutrients from the sediment. So we're not really solving some of those other issues. One other thing though that I saw in I think a documentary that was essentially cool is if it could be designed in a way where fish passage was, you know, experts thought that this would work. And then the rocks were put in a way, oh, and sorry, one of the other downsides there was the idea that folks wouldn't be able to kayak up into the pond because you'd have this set of riffles.
Yeah.
The other thought was whether people could portage, was the idea of designing it in a way where there's a more dramatic little cascade, or you could actually have like a rock ramp one side and a cascade where there's a hole where whitewater kayakers go in and like have a little play wave. But I don't know if this
But
river
this-
ever
I think
produces,
that
you know,
might
has enough
be, yeah.
of a volume for that. But
Yeah, but you're in the end proposing a mini dam.
something
Just in a
that
different, in a.
more naturalistic.
But I think
Set of
it's putting there,
features.
right, because it does hit, it is something that like removes the dam. It leaves, it has some of the problems, I think we can say, put it in there as terms of like, we thought about, it, we removed it. Cause it does technically remove it, but then it kind of reintroduces,
Yeah, but then you have to, I don't know, from an engineering perspective, permitting, if you're rebuilding a mini dam.
I mean, I don't even think you have to get into that, cause you can kind of say like, it's sort of, it gives. It leaves you with some more of the recreational benefits that we currently have, like more likely that you're gonna be able to skate or whatever. But like, we feel like the engineering, we can just say like, we feel like the engineering isn't really worth it, that you're not gonna get all of the restoring to nature benefits, but I think.
Then you will have to fight still with the invasives, the water
Yeah.
invasives.
But more
Yeah,
accepted,
even
susceptible to that,
even
right?
get making potentially more area where more shallow stuff.
I mean,
Right.
I think we're the one group that would fit under as a mindset, so I think it's worth putting in there as like a concept we thought about and then thought it was not.
Yep, we
Just-
can put it, I'll put it in.
Yeah, just as like a, you know, we are trying to think as creatively as we can to kind of get. Some of the nostalgia.
Yeah, no,
Let's
no
dig
matter
into
what you
this.
put there, no matter which form factor, it needs to fulfill the engineering requirements on the
Right.
dam.
Yeah.
And then needs to be stress tested against kind of flooding.
Yeah.
100, 200, whatever, 1,000-year
Yeah.
stuff, hurricanes.
So I guess
Yeah.
I'm reacting to your question with the thought that the primary interest of Friends of Warner Pond, and there could be two other ones here, is more open water
Yeah.
strips for a recreational and aesthetic
I think
value.
that
But
the only,
Vicky, we should talk with Vicky next week to say like, what?
I think the only one where you can get more open water would be to dredge. over
Around the
there.
deep pool.
Yes, I think so.
I think this is where you have the higher, if you do something there and just bring it within 1 foot higher than it would be, you're not gaining a lot here. I think
Yeah.
you're only gaining a lot if you then suddenly do major dredging.
All right, we'll look forward to feedback and write up.
Yeah.
As we can into
Thank
that
you.
time.
Thank you.
Yeah, it helps me to get words on paper.
Really good.
Hello, good to see you. Sorry, I'm not.
Jeff, you want this back?
I've got it.
Yesterday, I was in the same room.
I mean, if you want to.
Get a lot done?
If you're just gonna work. dig-
Yes.
Yeah, I'll work on it. Yeah.
We did get a lot done, but we didn't get anywhere near as much done as we.
Yeah, that's always the way with Malcolm, right?
Yeah, it is.
They are the ones who are like, I don't know what to talk about.
All right.
Good, solve everything, everything's all done?
Also.
Good.
No worries.
Great, terrific.
All right. Someone needs to turn my volume down. I think that might be.
Work on it. I'm looking at her down the screen right here.
No pressure. Someone say something. Not anymore. I think it's great. You made it. Okay, I think, wanna do this?
Yes, sorry. You're taking notes. Okay, so that was,
Are we
really-
still recording? Yes, we are. still.
yeah, I got a message.
Message in there.
I lost the document.
That's fine.
Um. That was really interesting, the group that I sat. Did not put me to sleep at all. So now we need the report outs from the group so that we can capture that for each other and also for the minutes. So is there a work group that would like to go first? And welcome, Bruce.
Well, we can go first. Most of our stuff we have, Mark had presented earlier. But based on what we heard from the meeting, last time we were there, there were two things that we wanted to focus on and add, and we will add to in more detail to our final proposal. And then something else that came up tonight, that we want to talk about as well, that we'd like to consider, although again, it's not quite under us and maybe it should be done by somebody else. Let me tell you the two things that we're gonna be working on. One is, trying to fill out the look as to, what would the pond be like if we did absolutely nothing? If there was no, weeding, et cetera, et cetera. We know that we thought about this and we're gonna be working on this, but we know, it'll be ultimately unnavigable by most watercraft. The deep hole will probably become the pond. Scout Island will not be accessible by a present boat launch. So we've teased these out a little bit further. The current fish population will be depleted. The riverine channel will continue to flow through the area. So we're gonna work on that. The other thing we looked at was the cost, and we tried to figure out, someone had raised that before, I think it was Jeff and others talked about what the cost might be. And we said, yes, there would be some costs, certainly annual costs, preparing for and conducting an annual meeting of all the interested parties, a periodic meeting of the pond stewards, researching and analyzing the effect. If it's possible, to do a drawdown, same thing, if it's to analyze and research the possibility of having a diver-assisted harvesting of weeds, researching and analyzing the possibility of a fish passage, and then monitoring the health of the pond. There may be other things, and we have no numbers on that, but that's the things we're gonna be pursuing. The last thing that David raised, and I thought was really interesting, Dave, maybe you want to speak to that, David, but we were thinking about adding to our report.
Well, I was inspired by the public comment at the beginning about archaeology. And it reminded me of my days in college when I worked for the Delaware Highway Department doing archaeology, and that any federally funded highway always comes with, necessity to spend a certain percent on a cultural impact assessment. And, in terms of us being holistic in how we approach this and the cultural aspects of the pond, I think us doing something around the archaeology around the pond. I know that Scout House would probably allow archaeologists onto the island. We could see prehistoric and colonial, and see what's there. I think it would be, helpful to the community, whatever happens, that we're showing that we're embracing, really understanding, the cultural history that surrounds the pond.
So that's our report.
All right. Any questions or comments to the group? Yes.
My
Go
one comment was, that I love that archaeology idea. As you were saying it, I vaguely remember reading stuff in Envision Concord about being like, we don't have a great awareness sometimes of what used to be there. So I think that really kind of hits that. That's awesome.
I just wanted to reinforce your suggestion of looking at, what happens if you do nothing other than pay the minimum. I think that is. I think it's a very helpful thing to do in terms of presenting an option that we know is going to probably be the lowest possible cost. Maybe not with the best possible outcome, but if we can score it appropriately to be able to show that we have actually seriously considered it, that would be a very helpful thing.
Right.
Just once, probably you have it on the list, did just not mention it, but maintaining the dam.
Yes.
Is a cost ongoing.
Oh, yeah. Yes, that's a good point.
And actually, as far as that goes, I think looking into having it re-graded or evaluated, reclassified. So that that could change to a 10-year. Checking into
Inspection.
inspection, thank you so much. A 10-year inspection versus a 5-year inspection.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, there's just one thing and it affects two work groups, yours and the other where we keep, what we do dredging is there are concerns with the fishing on the dam, that there are liability and security concerns.
Yeah.
Because right now the dam is not configured in a way that would prevent the kids or whoever who's fishing to fall into the gap and do things. So if this stays, definitely there will be questions from Public Works is how do we ensure safety and address liability concerns the way the dam is used today for fishing.
Ask the reclassification of the dam. I know people here know much more about it than I do. In my reading, it doesn't, it says that we could apply for a reassessment. It doesn't say that we would get that reassessment. And I just wonder what the chances are.
It was suggested by PAR in their report of the dam, so that's why I think it would be probably pretty good.
I can't
That it would
imagine
happen.
suggested without it being reasonable.
Oh,
Yeah, that's why I brought it up, because that's where I saw it.
So what they suggested was that evaluation on the reclassification be done.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
right.
And we don't know what I think it's probably likely that it could be downgraded. But the recommendation is to, the town should, I don't know what the cost is, but I don't think it's a huge.
No, I was just curious as to whether it was a done deal or whether it was a crapshoot.
It would be an evaluation, yeah.
Okay,
Why is that not picking up? Maybe that's what you're doing, Adelia?
Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not picking up.
It
Yeah.
was connected to the owl. Who's left out?
Was it Bert?
I think
Or
it's
is
No, it's
taking the camera from
You're taking the camera from
Rachel.
me?
Yeah, your camera is active, not.
Oh, my camera's
our-
active. If I turn it off,
Or you
then I
change
shouldn't have.
the video.
So should it be, I don't know why
On Zoom,
it-
it seems like the owl is working fine. for camera.
Okay,
Good,
so it's just the room.
okay.
Yeah, it's the display maybe that you've got on the television there.
Who's
It was
dealing
working before.
with your laptop?
Oh, yeah, let's,
This laptop is connected to the owl.
Yeah, it's not this.
I'm glad we didn't.
If
Me
people
too.
don't mind it, it's.
Fine.
You don't mind it,
Yeah.
you don't love it, okay, I'll work on it. Okay, keep going.
Of all people, it should be facilitated
Yeah,
broadcast.
let's just keep going.
Multi-speaker?
What if I turn
Just
off- I
smile.
turn off my video, what happens? Huh, yeah, it's definitely on.
There we are.
There you go, okay.
How about that? The best thing is she doesn't know how you did it, do you?
Thank you, Delia.
Thank you, Delia.
Anytime.
So one question before we leave the short-term action group. Last meeting, there was a discussion about, maybe it was the meeting before, there was a discussion by the work groups about doing an evaluation of the criteria in the work groups. Does anybody remember that, or is it only me?
Yeah, you're good. Yep.
So is
Well,
your group doing?
We actually did, I don't think people noticed, we did it, we actually did that, yeah. And in this version, we've actually, when we're ready for it, you'll see it's more highlighted, we've broken it out in a way that's much more. The template font is different, you'll see that we've actually answered every question in that group, in the criteria. Not saying we answered them all correctly or answered them all well, but it's certainly, we took attempt at all of them, yeah.
I think that's gonna be really helpful. Okay, what work group would like to report next?
We'll go next. Okay, so the dredging group. So basically, we agreed to come up with 3 proposals. Effectively, that's really just dredging 3 different amounts. The dredge material is all gonna go in the same place, whether it's a smaller amount, a greater amount, whatever. It will all go into the area. We call it the north area, which is between Bruce Freeman Rail Trail and Route 2. We also discussed that, should I go into more detail about this? Or just the highlights?
Well, I have one quick question. When you're, does that get pumped over or does it have to be trucked over to that? Pumped. Oh, that's good. All right.
And that's that whole area, it'll be the dewatering, whatever,
I see.
everything is going in that one area, so
Okay.
it's not any other
Okay.
area.
Could probably just add that we did meet with Bruce Thompson from the project manager for the StarMet site.
Mhm.
So he let us know that he confirmed. Paul Baum was saying that there is a need for a lot of clean fill. And they are interested in potentially receiving fill from that field, so. What was presented last meeting, I think you presented them kind of the initial plans of the holding capacity for the field that could be increased. Theoretically, if a lot of that material is removed and brought to StarMet, so you could actually put potentially more dredge material in that field than the existing conditions would allow. So we're looking into that. But probably no more details at this point to offer.
Right, but that's definitely something that is on the table. Yes,
When the sediment is dewatering on that cornfield, which is a bit of a bowl,
Mhm.
where does it go? It's just infiltration?
Yeah, there's a number of things you can do. So you could dig out a sump, or series of sumps, and you can pump them out and put everything into a filter bag next to the pond.
Yep.
That's one option.
Sediment goes over and water goes
Yeah,
back.
sediment's always staying in the field.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's a lot of, there would have to be a really specific dewatering plan developed, and that's all gonna be a function of how much material is going there. We don't really know the answers to, at that point.
Yeah.
Tonight.
I'm interested just to put a pin in that many of us I know are interested in the issue of that stormwater drainage from Route 2, and that comes from somewhere under that cornfield, right, or that field.
Oh, yeah.
If there's a way of,
goes underneath.
yeah,
So it goes from the, as far as I know, it goes from the pond to the other side of Route 2.
So I'd be curious if there's a way with this dewatering and any infrastructure needed or any expense needed to also kind of upgrade that, like if there was a way to do some kind of a catch basin underground in the middle of that field that would, you know, capture sediments coming off of Route 2 that could be
Mhm.
cleaned out occasionally on, you know, this would all be a DOT thing, but
Right,
if there was an operation to deal with water, if that
Right.
could somehow be
while it was, so to speak,
integrated.
pulled apart.
Mm. That's great.
Any other questions for the George Group? Okay, dam removal, you're up.
I can go ahead.
Everybody at once.
So we started going through, so we, at our last kind of outside of the main group meeting, we started going through the 3 different proposals we had kind of presented to you and putting some points against it on the criteria to kind of help us narrow down and prioritize some of the actions. So we kind of went through and we did a first pass at prioritizing some of our actions. We spent some time talking about the costs and potential places we can recoup it. This was like 10 minutes ago and I already can't remember. Sorry talking. We had some conversations around like, what are we missing something that will really kind of help groups like Friends of Warner Pond get on board? Like, is there some sort of silver bullet like that we are missing? Or like, can we think of some things are there things that we're not thinking of at the moment? We're trying to have that on our radar to start thinking about. And it's basically, we're really kind of going, we had a draft of the proposal that got sent out, so we were kind of just basically going through that. Is that a fair? Okay.
I guess I have a question based on what was presented in the basis of design report. Were there any questions for EA that came out of your analysis of that document?
No, we went through it pretty thoroughly. Vicky had a long list of questions. We all had some others, and we didn't have.
I think we had like things we were curious about, and nothing that felt like a hang up in terms of what we were proposing. So, you know, we spent a long time talking about like what's gonna happen, like with the disposal of that little arsenic thing that they point out, like, and how like that might impact. So but we didn't feel like that was a hang up in whatever we proposed to the group.
I think there's just an opportunity there to maybe for the larger group to comment on that.
I think that would be a great thing to do at some point, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because that the cost was about 1.2.
1.1.
1.1 million. And that would be sort of, as I read it, I may be wrong, and maybe I'm mischaracterizing this. That'd be sort of like going with what Sven, you had proposed, basically, just, you know, a dam removal and just let things return to normal. So you'd have to add on to that on the other two versions, yeah.
Yeah, but you have a base case.
We have a base case, that makes
Yeah.
sense, okay.
And you can look at the base cases, okay, what's the 1.1 million, the question then is how much other funding sources you have.
That's true, other funding sources,
Yeah,
true,
so
yeah.
because in the end, the 1.1 is not cash out of the
No,
town.
no.
Yeah, you have significant other funding sources. for that.
Absolutely,
So, and then you have the additions and we prioritize the additions in order of what we think is
right,
the value to say what you get out of it.
yeah, yeah,
Simple things like not high cost, but high value is historic signage and remembering, say, the historic context.
maybe trails.
Yeah, then trails, if you suddenly touch in like the last point we have is if you potentially need to do kind of safety measures. Depending on how the channel goes,
Mhm,
yeah, so you need to start having at least the emergency budget
mhm,
on hand. And when the river does what it does.
yeah,
And it's fine for a year, and then there comes a major storm and suddenly there's property and safety concerns.
Yep.
Then you have to have an emergency budget to potentially do something.
Mhm.
Yeah, so this adaptive management
Yeah.
plan is high priority.
Yeah.
It's contemplated in the sort of 30% design. Sven pointed out it's not in the Sumco budget, but it would be a sort of, I think, standard operating procedure that we want to expect.
Yeah, okay.
It's sort of top priority after.
And I think also what you were talking about, one that we did, because we had talked in our presentations around like. More dredging to ensure that deep, and then when we went through our criteria ranking, we actually kind of came to the fact that it didn't actually seem like the cost benefit of dredging extra. Is super high, so that's kind of on the bottom of our list, so we really are, I think, in terms of the pure dam removal, looking at that 30%, and then. All the other stuff we're talking about are sort of. Definitely cost additions, but not related to. The pond and the waterway.
Now, the one place where I know, I'm gonna speak for David, is access.
I was just gonna ask.
Yeah,
that question.
because the way the stream is the way the channel is, it's closer to Scout Island and not close, the way it looks like it is anyway. And not necessarily close to the Commonwealth boat launch. So. That's me talking twice.
That's a really important point.
So have you thought about that problem?
One of the ideas that we had come up with was, the idea of like, it would have to be something to work with Scout Island on, is doing a launch on Scout Island. To hit kind of the river and then getting from Thoreau. So cause it kind of, if you look at it, it looks oh my God, the western half of the island, the river is kind of,
On the northwest corner.
thank you. Like on my
Can't look
direction, I was
here,
looking to
so
the
you're
east, and I was like, no, that's
Very
wrong.
close,
Oh, I
Yeah.
think I know what you mean.
close to that, I don't know if you'd call it a secondary access point, but.
Yeah.
sort of
The scouts will scramble up any piece of that. If they can get the canoe to the island, don't
Yeah.
worry about a landing
Yeah.
point.
No, that's the problem that
It's not.
Not onto the
it's
island.
But anywhere else, cause yeah, they will scamper up anything.
So where would you launch your canoes? That's my question.
Commonwealth.
And see, the way that the channel is right
No,
now.
I'm
Yeah.
hearing that.
Yeah.
And, you know, a new place to launch from is fine, but the things I've heard floated, no pun intended, are like parking up in the Dro parking lot, and then you're gonna carry each thing down to a dock and put that, and that's just not workable when we're talking about moving masses of scouts and parents and siblings, out. We really need to get a trailer with the 8 canoes down to the
actually-
waterfront.
I have a question for you around this, that I'm literally just thinking about. It's kind of stems off a conversation I had with Kate about, we were talking.
Kate's another Girl Scout
Kate
leader
is,
and now on the
is Scout
board
House.
of the Scout House
Yeah.
with me.
She was thinking about liability, which I know is something you brought up
Mhm.
earlier, but so outside of the conversations around liability, if you do have some potential like land access, then would some like families wanna go?
That
to
has been
area-
discussed by the
Okay.
board because there was one, this is going back a while, there was one idea that was around that was building berms that then would allow land access to walk
Okay,
onto the island. And we did discuss at the board meeting, it's like, okay, what would that do to our liability insurance?
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, our concern would just be, hey, does that add significant additional cost? It's not that we be totally against it, it's just we, you
fleshing
know,
out
it's
the
not,
details of a lot of these.
if it's not for free, we wanna weigh in on it.
Yeah. Yeah, so see,
So-
it feels like there's some things that we can flesh out. It's not like.
There wasn't like a concern
Yeah.
like, oh no, people
Yeah.
will be using the island, it's like,
Yeah.
no, it's a wonderful resource,
Yeah.
you know,
Mm.
so.
Does that help?
I'm okay, it's all
Yeah.
talk to the man with the.
No,
trowel.
yeah. Okay, but does
Yeah.
that, yeah,
And we have been focusing on the Commonwealth Avenue. you know,
Yeah.
As the primary.
But yeah, I just wanna make it clear, it doesn't have to be a Commonwealth, it's just to
Yeah.
recreate that trailerable access to water's edge.
yeah, because one of the things we are talking about is increasing improvements around there in terms of parking and stuff like that, so it
Mhm.
might have a little further to walk, but you might have more of an ability to park and get things there. I don't know.
So would that be walkable to bring canoes out to the,
I'm re-looking at this
Stream.
now. where I can't remember off the top of my head where the channel went, and now I
I had
can't figure out where it is.
suggested that it may be from some sort of dock
Yeah,
going out from the current car park. I mean, a lot will depend on where how close the actual channel is, which we don't know for certain.
I think that's the biggest problem with Dam removal, right, is that there's an element of uncertainty, no matter what you can do, you can plan so much and like. Nature's gonna do what nature's
But
gonna
can't
do.
we approximate
Yeah, I think.
with,
that we- yeah.
with a drawdown, like, couldn't we approximate? No.
No, because in the end, the biggest effect is how the sediments move. And if you just make
Over
careful
time.
drawdown, you don't have it, then you will have, say, a couple of storms going through and it moves again. You will have a period where this is a little bit of a wait and see where exactly it goes. Probably we are approximately by, I don't know how many.
And
foot,
it can change
Yeah.
over time.
And
you
it
know,
will
Just look
change,
at any
and
deltas,
it
you
will
know,
change
yeah.
over time.
Yeah.
But the question is, how fast?
Mhm.
Yeah. But that is what every kind of water body is doing, then you
Right.
just leave it alone.
Mhm.
So two questions to all the groups. Do you have any question for the full task force that you want? Anything else that you want the group to weigh in on in terms of your next steps?
Just ask for permission
Yeah.
to the RFI.
So we, the dredging subgroup would like to, take, we feel like we don't want the ask for the bathymetric survey. And the reason for that is because it's over $15,000. And given that information, and how expensive it is, we feel like that should be done at a later date. It's also informed by the fact that for the survey to be done, it's best done in the spring when there's no weeds. Going out right now is not, we just wouldn't get good data. So it seems to make more sense to put that off. If the entire task force feels like that's where, you know, this project should be going. So what we would like to ask for now instead is a much smaller ask to have, for us to develop a request for information to get, cost estimates for the 3 proposals that we're thinking about. And it would be using the old dredge plans, but we feel like we're just going to, you know, include that as another assumption in the RFI. So we're gonna draft something, circulate it with, you know, Sammy, the engineer, our subgroup, and would like permission to go out for the RFI on that.
I think it's the next step. I mean, I think it makes perfect sense and, to get that. And we know that there'll be changes no matter what, even. You know, I mean, in other words, not having the bathymetric a model is not necessary for the RFI. I can see that. Because the cubic yards of material being moved, which is the most expensive thing, it seems to me, you basically know already what that's going to be in your 3, I'm assuming in your 3 proposals, right?
Right, so one thing that we also talked about is that, you know, the original dredging bid was looking at a depth to dredge of 9 feet.
Okay,
We heard from Milford Ponds from the Army Corps at our meeting last night. And they dredged to a depth of 12 feet, and that's sort of the gold standard. And so we think that is what this
Okay.
dredge depth should be. just
Okay.
To be even more long lasting. So
okay.
that's just another thing that has to go into the RFI as
Yeah,
as
yeah.
a reference point.
So how much so what you want us to vote for you to go get and get?
Well, we just, maybe at this point, we're just saying this is what we're going to do, and then when we come back with numbers for the cost of what it's gonna, you know, what we need to pay somebody to prepare that cost estimate, we'll come back with the ask. I guess that's how we.
So you're gonna need money to someone to prepare your cost estimates, right?
Right, what, we have to first put out the RFI to see what comes back, because then we'll have the number, we can say our low bid was X.
Did you have a concern last meeting about, putting out a proposal that you might not then actually follow through on? Would it be helpful to, for us to have a?
So this is why, it's like with the dam removal cost estimate, it's a request for information
Okay,
instead of
okay,
like an RFQ, a request for quotes
is
or
slightly different.
RFP for proposals.
Okay,
You are signaling that you will be awarding a project.
okay,
But with an
gotcha.
RFI, you're just asking, we just need this information.
Okay.
So basically, we're asking the same thing that you guys just
Okay,
got,
that makes a
pretty
lot of
much,
sense. I
right?
didn't realize
Correct.
there was a difference between the three, sort of.
I
Right.
know, it's, yeah.
So many acronyms, okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, so do you need us to vote for an amount of money or just to go ahead?
I don't think we need a vote right now. I think it's when we, or,
Sure, then what, how are you gonna be stuck? What do you, how are you gonna go forward?
I thought we were going to ask for it tonight so that we could, because we just need to
we were
finalize it.
going to, and I was thinking.
And then
don't
we
need to
can
do
send it
until-
out and then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That way we can have it out 7 days before. Friday.
Yeah, no, that's right. We are asking for,
yeah, so that we can get it out and get the information and, anyway, our plan is to present our proposals at the next task force meeting. But the sooner we get that information out,
yeah,
you know, request it, then the sooner we'll get it back and then we can share that information as well.
right. So there's two ways it could go.
Mhm.
We could just, we're gonna draft the RFI by, let's say, the end of next week. And then it goes out on the street for a week.
Mhm.
And then that would probably put us in line for the October 29th meeting to come back and say, we're asking for X amount of money. Or, because we'll know
What will you know?
what the contractors are saying they will charge us to do the work to prepare those cost estimates.
Okay,
The risk that we run is that, and we're not planning to have that cost estimate be part of our proposal on the 29th that we present.
Right, we didn't think we'd have it in time.
No, no. But if we don't get, for whatever reason, it doesn't go out and we don't get information back in time, we might not have the ask in front of the task force. So similar to what,
so what do you need? I mean, how much money do you need?
well, I was gonna say similar to what we did with the bathymetry, up to 5,000, I would say. So the dam removal that cost estimate was $2,500. I think this one's a little more complicated because we're asking for 3 different scenarios. And
Why don't we say more than that, though? Why, because I don't know how much, I mean, we, last time we expected it to be no more than, say, 10 to 15 for the bathroom, then it was about
Yeah.
18 or 20, right?
right,
So why don't we authorize up to 10 or so?
That's what I would think too.
Makes sense?
No, push for 12.
No.
15.
No.
Rounded up to 50.
Yeah, that's right. So does someone make a motion?
I'd like to motion that we authorize the dredging subgroup to spend up to up to, what did we say, $10,000?
Yes, it is very-
Okay, I'm gonna try that again. I'd like to motion that we authorize the dredging subgroup to spend up to $10,000 on an ROI,
all right.
RFI, so close, for their 3 dredging proposals.
Good.
It's a very long motion, I'm sorry, guys.
Second? Jeff seconded. All those, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's
Great.
unanimous.
Thank you.
All right. All set.
Spend the money.
Any other groups want, have a question or need anything from the task force?
Think on this, thinking of the dam removal estimate, which is really helpful. We keep circling as a subgroup this question of fixing the channel close to ComAv. And that seems to be sort of the thing that if we could control it would have the most value.
Mhm.
We have a sense that the channel will flow through the deep pool. It'll come in somewhere on the west side and based on
Yes.
where it flows now, will run very close to Scout Island on the northwest corner. If it could somehow form or be encouraged to form a stone's throw from Com Ave and people could have boat access, that would be beneficial. So Dealey, what would be involved in, sorry if it's too late to ask, but in asking Sumco or EA to say, you know, how much design would be involved in that versus in the field type of work as the impoundment drains and things begin to take shape? And could they make a cost estimate? Would it be technically feasible and permittable?
I think that's the first question, is could it even? Could you even? You know, if I'm hearing this correctly, it's basically saying, we know that the, you know, stream comes through the deep hole and then somewhere it kind of, there's a dog leg.
To the northeast.
Yeah. And then can you excavate out a channel that it would follow? I think the first question is probably just to ask if that's a feasible
Ask.
ask.
Yeah.
And I'm looking to Rachel, because I know, you know, I have not been involved in stream relocation projects, but I have seen them permitted, and I have seen where they've taken a stream, and they did it in, you know, Warner's Pond with the original stream channel is not where it is now. But, you know, you can take a stream, you can move it somewhere else. But within a pond system, I don't know, Rachel, if you have any thoughts on that.
I won't give you an answer based on my own experience, but I'll give you an answer based on what I heard from Joe Gould. He talked about that there are dam removal projects where the stream is manipulated, then dredging is a component, and they do some additional work to enhance the flow path or to direct the stream in a particular direction. So based on that, and it's coming from DER, I would say that if there was consultation between the consultant and DER, if, you know, if you went down this path, if you got closer to developing sort of a more definite proposal, that's where I would look, right? I think generally speaking, if DER is comfortable with it, then that usually solves your permitting problems. But I mean, he definitely talked about stream manipulation. There's no question of that.
Mhm.
And I do know at Mass Audubon, when folks have been involved in restoration of cranberry bogs, it's taking channelized, very carefully sort of agriculturally plumbed system and reintroducing a sinuous riverbed. Those outer sides of the meanders are fixed in place with logs and root balls and things like that, because, you know, the nature of things is to erode out into that meander. But the idea is you can sort of put the channel in place and help it stay in place until things get bedded in.
Right.
So it seems like it's low tech, but there's a technology to doing some of these things.
So is there an ask to the task force out of that issue?
What is the,
Don't think so, no.
okay, okay.
I think, I think something we need to look at a little more.
Okay.
closely
We're gonna keep
together.
discussing.
Based on Sumco's estimate, there was some costs associated with stream restructuring.
Yeah.
What length of stream were they assuming? Did you,
We talked
That's
about that.
mainly where you removed them
just so they're
in
right
a
in
close
that-
proximity around where you start building temporary structures with for heavy equipment, then you rebuild and you take the dam out, so you have to do something in that area. This is at least how I understand it,
Right.
where this is not further upriver.
Mhm. So there's a potential need to do extended streams. Enforcing upstream. Because it's so flat, and even though you may be able to see a stream channel in the pond, it very well likely would be like a braided stream system. So that, I mean, I'm not sure that cost is known or captured at this point, but
Yeah, that's
It's just
just
something
comes
that-
also back to that
just
kind of
something to flag.
emergency pot
Yeah.
of money to say you have to be reactive to what's happening and being able to do something if it's needed.
the elevations coming into the pond are really similar to the elevations going out, so there's not a large gradient. Just, I think that needs to be understood.
Right, I mean, I think the other thing about that is, the basis of design report, there's a graphic that shows open water conditions or ecological community conditions after dam removal, and the open water does not connect.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
based on current, existing bathymetry. I think two things, the sediment will push, or the water will push through the sediment to create a channel. But I think you could also enhance that by doing some sediment removal in those areas to help with that, channel formation.
Okay, so the other question for the task force is just, is there anything that came out of your small group discussions about needing any other expertise? An expert? Seeking an expert in anything, just so we know that and we can start looking. Hearing none? All right, Toby.
Great. Okay, before we move on to the next section, do we want to talk about who could present the next meeting? I know it sounds like the dredging group feels like they might be ready. Do you feel like we should
Yes,
plan on putting them on the agenda?
yeah.
Okay. So dam removal group, are you in a similar place for next meeting, or you still want to play it by ear?
I still feel less comfortable with this, but
We've got a meeting.
we.
Next Thursday.
That's true.
No,
Week from Monday.
Can we touch base with you after our next meeting?
Yeah. And I think totally fine to have that one group, that took us the full
Yeah,
time
don't
last
feel
time, so.
pressure.
Could be a long meeting if we have two,
Right,
in any case.
right.
Yeah. Okay,
It's coming up quickly.
so we, next item on our agenda is task force member topics of interest. So we asked you all to, I'm not allowed to share. Okay, that's okay. Something.
Oh,
happened
you can
with the
share,
Zoom.
hold on,
Yeah.
hold on.
Yeah, saying not allowed to, send a request to someone. Anyway, there's not much on the slide. in any
Go for
case.
it.
All right, now we're on the.
I don't know why you can't. Oh, maybe it.
There we go.
No one.
Coming up anyway. All right, sorry, I won't worry about it. We have, just a couple of topics of interest that were named beforehand. One of them was about this no action alternative, that was raised, to us between the meetings, and I think that's been addressed. Malcolm, is there anything else we need to talk about that?
no, I think it's been addressed perfectly.
Okay, great. And we also sent out some survey question about the public meeting and what people think about that, when you think it might be appropriate to do that, what goals you think might make the most sense. So we didn't get a huge amount of response at the public meeting, but from the survey, but I think it kind of mirrored what we were hearing at the end of the meeting last time, which is that the response that we did hear from the survey suggested that the meeting be held at a time when we actually have formal proposals to consider. And that's, I think, in line with our mandate from the beginning, was that, we say we host two of these, and second one would involve a sharing out proposal for the public to comment on, proposal of proposals. I don't have the language in front of me at the moment. And so we could share, our proposals, share our criteria, and get feedback from folks, from the public, is the idea that came in the comment. And this should be at a time when we actually have those proposals to share, ideally with some cost information associated with them. So that was sort of I think where we're at this point. Planning team also spoke about this, and I think our thinking is we don't need to get into the details of planning the meeting at this point. Let's get through our proposals, and then, we can start thinking about a date once we know when the proposals are in, et cetera, and start planning it, but it's not an urgent matter at this point.
Well, I think once we start, once we make our presentations to each other and once we get costs in, then I think we have a better sense of timing and when we can present.
Right.
Makes sense.
and, you know, given our pace right now, that could be towards the end of this year, right?
Mhm.
Seems feasible,
Mhm.
and so I think we can
Yeah.
have that in our heads and as we kind of finish up with these proposals in the next few meetings, move on to that as one of our next steps.
Right.
Another comment that came out, and, Malcolm, if it's okay, I can just kind of turn this to you, but there was a, comment, from Malcolm suggesting that, you know, the public meeting is very helpful as a tool. It gets us a sort of snapshot of where folks are, at least the people at the meeting. But there's also a selection bias just in terms of who shows up. So kind of a question about, are there ways that we can try to get additional forms of feedback or broader forms of feedback, you know, from people who might not show up to a meeting, but once a proposal is in town meeting or whatever, would have strong opinions and care a lot about what ends up happening. So Malcolm, I guess I can turn it over to you, and I think this is certainly a discussion point we can talk about.
Yeah, I think Toby's touched on some of the key issues. I mean, and I raised this back in June, and it faltered and didn't go anywhere. And it was only when I was thinking last week or the week before, whenever it was, about both the public meeting and you know, what do people feel about this, and what are we going to? We have to bear in mind that whatever we're proposing will end up before town meeting, and it would be very important to me for us to understand where the town is, not just you know, whatever smaller samples we've looked at now. And so far we have written public comments coming in. We have public comments at our meetings. We've had the public meeting, and the event that started off this whole process was an online survey, which had online surveys have their own problems and biases. So what I was wondering is if there are any academically minded, or don't have to be academically minded, people who are interested in forming a small group where we could come up with one or two approaches we could use to get broader community input into both perspectives around Warners Pond, and perspectives on the options to deal with either preserving the pond or whatever option comes up. You know, the academic in me wants to do, you know, properly designed studies and having a whole army of graduate students going out and surveying people, and that part of my life is long gone. So it would have to be something quick and dirty, but there are some good techniques out there for doing this. So I was curious if someone, first of all, does the task force think this is something we should do? And if it does, is there anybody who would like to work with me?
I mean, I think as the two at-large members, we're probably the ones who are the most, like, let's wrap our head around how to get that, you know, because part of the reason is I was like, you know, I talked to my kids' friends' parents, they're like, there's these signs, what's going on? It's like, what do you mean, what's going on? It's like, all right, well, I live there, so of course I have like this very intense feelings about it. So I think it's worth talking about, and I think that I'd like to help out with that if I can. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I can't commit to doing anything with it, except I could possibly plug you in with some students who could do it. Undergraduates, maybe even graduates, but I do think it would be good to get more data on what the broader community, you know, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of posts and documents and all, but to get it codified into data, what the actual sentiment is, I think would really be a good idea.
But the question I have is, do you want to survey what the sentiment is. Do you want to survey or get feedback on the options and what people think on the options? If it's
Great, yeah.
options, yeah, but then you have a major part of educating.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's, I think we don't have the masses showing up in our meetings.
I think that the very first thing to do is to understand. In parts of West Concord, there is very high awareness of this issue. I have no idea what people who live on Virginia Road think about it, if they even have heard of Warren's Pond. But they have just as much of a vote as people who live in West Concord. So I think it's, first of all, we need to understand, do people even understand that there's an issue here?
I think first try to survey the status quo.
Right, and from that, we can then determine, is there education that needs to be done, which would be something for the larger task force? How would we go about doing that? Or is there more investigation we need to do? But my very first thought would be that we have to find a way to get some sort of representative sample. I mean, there are multiple techniques you could use to do that. And whether, when we don't need to go into those here, but obviously we don't have clearly defined options before us right now, so it wouldn't be necessarily the right thing to go out to people and say, hey, there's this place called Warner's Pond over in West Concord. Do you want to keep it or do you want to take the dam down? That doesn't,
it could be a good idea to, if, in doing this survey, find out what education levels are, what people's because it could guide us in, okay, how much depth and at what level do we need to explain the options? Could help us tailor our presentation.
I think Bruce, maybe you wanted to chime in?
Yeah, I just, as I'm thinking about it, I'm also thinking about it, so it's like when you think of, one or two questions, you think about sort of modality, and then you think about what your outcomes are coming back for a sample before you actually really create a scope, right? So it's like, and maybe that's just the informal conversations and sort of see what's coming back. But one of the things I look at, it's like, okay, so to get this type of studies, so to speak, in place, you're talking about sort of multiple stages and how long, how long do you see this taking?
I think we have a limited timeline. I think that I should have pursued this back in June and not let it go. Which is why I said we have to be much more quick and dirty than we do, have to be truly academic, but there are still approaches you can use that can get the information. I would have to talk to an epidemiologist friend or a statistics friend to get a sense of how many people one should talk to, whatever, but
the sample could be.
but the samples, we're not talking about a massive population here, so what would be a representative sample from the population? I'd need somebody to help me.
When they figure out what parts of town and where.
Yeah.
So generally, just for me to be clear, so I guess. Are we putting a question out what people want? They're taking the dam down or not, or are we sampling, what do you know about it, what do you?
Good questions, those are great questions.
Because
Yeah.
I feel that if you're putting uninformed, just the question out is, do you hear about Warner's Pond and do you want to take it down?
No, I don't think you can
That's-
stop.
Yeah,
Right.
that is a no-go.
No.
Yeah, because that came just a few minutes away,
No,
came up, yeah,
absolutely.
that's a no-go, if people are not informed to make a decision, it's more.
Right.
What do you
And
know,
I-
what are your concerns, what do you want to get
My
answered?
guess is that people in the rest of Concord are not as informed.
Yeah.
As we are. in
I
West
can't, there's no way.
So.
There's another level of that though, not just not informed, that I live on this other side of town, right? They're not interested.
Yeah, I think that's the bigger thing is.
And there's.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them are informed, but that's just not, it just isn't that part of their lives. you know? So I'm not saying there isn't both. There's a lot of environmental people and people with recreational concerns who are interested, but a significant number of people I talk to,
Mhm.
oh, I'm co-chairing. So, okay, so what?
So.
I don't
Malcolm,
have
You have to work that into this too.
I do not have a study design
Yeah.
in my back pocket that I've been
Oh,
working.
yeah,
on.
no.
I'm just raising the subject and
Yeah.
we would obviously need to move quite quickly on it. And I'm fortunate, I'm retired and I don't cost anything.
So it sounds like, Malcolm, what you're asking the group is essentially for permission, right, to go and see what you can find out about how this could be done, and then come back, and share with us what you learn, and potentially have a suggestion. If conversations lead you down an avenue of a kind of design that you think it would be appropriate, given where we're at in our process and, the time constraints that we have, right, you would then put that in front of us and let the group discuss it. Is that right?
Sure.
So so essentially you want to design a study, right? You want to design a study for us to look at. Is that right? You're not gonna go out and talk to people first. You're gonna come back.
No, I'm trying to think of I think that's probably reasonable. I mean, we're meeting next on the 29th of October.
Yeah, I almost have to be then, but you're gonna try to design a study for us.
Yeah, framework.
Yeah, 'cause I do
I
think
think
one of the-
probably we should be able to do that.
You could have a framework.
Yeah, and I think as we want to avoid, I wouldn't say trap, but that's not quite the word I'm looking for, of what happened with the last study where people kind of felt like it was biased towards
Yeah.
dam removal, so whatever you wanted, whatever would come out, I think would be really important for us
I
all to
think
be
it-
like, this is the correct wording, we're
Yeah, yeah,
presenting this very neutrally.
Mhm.
Sure.
And I just want to clarify, Liz, were you suggesting that you'd be interested in working with Malcolm on this, or?
Back away, Liz.
Very much
You heard that.
interested in, I just, I have to talk to you about my time.
And David, I think David, did you suggested that you might be interested too?
No, I'm not. But
That's good, I like that.
But I have associations with Holt International Business School and I had them do a market study for the Concord Scout House to look at other meeting spaces and they did quite a good job. I mean, it's led under a respectable professor. But it was actually good. So,
Yeah, well, this would be led by a disrespectable.
I just mean you wouldn't have to herd the kittens of the students. The professor would oversee
What was the
that, so I
time
could
frame
make,
on that?
pardon me?
What was the time frame on that?
Well, you have to catch them in the cycle of the semester, so the best. Now it would be end of semester, so it'd be end of November through December, that would be the window for them to do a end of semester project or the end of spring.
Which is actually not terrible timing.
No.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
No.
that's interesting. So it sounds like you have a couple folks who are maybe willing to be a sounding board, not necessarily.
Yeah, I'm
full
not sure how
partners.
much they're gonna put to it,
Yeah.
I'm a little overwhelmed right now.
I'm just happy, it would be good to have a sounding board.
My questions, Malcolm, when you come back will be, how does the study address that self-selection bias?
Mhm.
Folks who are, proximate, have already been aware of the process a little bit up to speed.
That's the biggest challenge is.
Engaging with folks.
Yeah.
Who are like, yeah, might have an opinion, but I haven't thought about this much.
Right.
I mean, unfortunately, that's so true. I mean, if it's not affecting you personally, so to speak, that you're less interested and you're less aware and you're not gonna get involved. So that's clearly what you're up
And I
against.
was just thinking, like, we just, in the Thoreau newsletter, they asked me to put in links about the town meeting survey. I'm like, I'm gonna go look at the click-through rate to see if people are actually looking at it, and stuff like that. I mean, I guess that's a bit of a self-selecting bias, because I know town meeting is a lot of the stuff that was raised, not a lot, some of the stuff that was raised around childcare and stuff, so it's a little bit self-selecting, but I'd be curious, so.
Well, this is just a small sample, but the League of Women Voters, you spoke of that. Was there a lot of, I mean, it's a self-selecting group, of course, but it's not just from one part of the town. Anything you saw from there?
You know, quite honestly, I mean, I shared, what we're
Yeah, yeah.
doing, the background and where we're going, but quite honestly, there were two people from the school.
Oh, that.
And so they spoke and like, I would say 90% of the questions were towards them and
Yeah.
then towards the finance
Of course,
gentleman.
yeah.
So we had two questions, right? One was a minor one and then you fielded the other one. So it was, you know, where was the interest? I don't think it was really
Not that high.
too deep, yeah.
Yeah.
And
So,
obviously, we don't want to spend large amounts of money on.
So, if folks comfortable with this happening, potentially hearing back at the next meeting
Sure,
or whenever.
sure, or the following, it doesn't have to.
I'll bring whatever we've thought of back to the next
okay.
meeting.
Great. And just to confirm, I think that, you know, obviously, there'll be, if you do consult with others, no talking about the substantive issues that we are deliberating on.
Right.
I think talking about a study design, I imagine is okay, but
Yeah.
if we can confirm that, right? Yeah. Okay, any other items of interest from anyone? That those are the only ones that we had coming in, so
I do have just some general thoughts, like I tried to share my screen earlier to make this easier, but. You know, and the basis for design report, the modeling
Can
results,
you give me the pages? I was trying to find it and I like.
I just took a screenshot. I don't know
Do you want me to pull up the,
If we're able to, I don't know how
the
easy that
basis
is.
of the design,
Yeah,
or
the
you want it
modeling
there?
results.
Yeah, I think I have it open. What page are you on?
It's the velocity map for the 5-year, 24-hour flood, so it's figure C20. That's helpful. I don't actually have the page on the screenshot.
It's pretty far down if I recall.
Any of the modeling results would probably work.
Okay, take me a minute to get there.
This is the velocity map. I'm looking at it lines up with the inundation, just showing different.
So, sorry, which figure did you say?
Well, the one I grabbed is just to grab something was C20. 5-year, 24-hour flood frequency.
Still going.
5-year 24-hour flood. It's on page 313.
313 or 338?
They just have those numbers.
Okay.
Pretty good, Liz, very good.
What was the page?
Uh,
313.
313.
Yeah.
13.
Wow, okay.
Mine are down
So
there.
I'm actually on a different page, but I'm gonna just pull it up, but,
There you go.
Is that it?
Yeah.
C20. I just had 20.
okay, so this is C21.
Yeah, that's about right.
Is that, okay, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit.
So it's just the comparing existing conditions before the dam is removed and then post dam removal.
So that's the existing right there.
That's that's existing,
All right,
Yeah, this is, right.
and that's flow, that's the flow,
but it's showing you kind of where the inundation is occurring, but then also showing the velocities. So there's a separate map that just shows the inundation,
okay,
which is the depths, but it's kind of the same footprint.
okay,
So we can look at the other one too, but if you go down to the next one, I think the big takeaway for me was there isn't a drastic difference pre and post dam removal for the flood risk, especially upstream.
Mhm.
Yeah, we talked about
So
that.
I think
It's very.
you guys, so I haven't been,
Yeah,
privy
yeah,
to
we
these
talked about that.
conversations. so-
Yeah, we were talking about how it was, at least for me, it was very interesting, like, 2 and 5 years, there'll be a difference but like, the ones that we're most concerned about,
Yes.
doesn't really matter.
Big ones, yeah,
Yeah.
So
there's the other.
that was actually one of the reasons why this report took so long, because Atera did this modeling. And they gave it back to EA and the engineers at EA said, this is so unusual not to have.
Hmm.
A reduction in the flood elevation post dam removal. So they went back and forth with tweaking those, numbers and essentially the problem. Or the reason why there is not, is at the higher storm elevations, the higher, storm events. The Pell Factory Bridge is not large enough to pass the flows. So it becomes the constriction, the constricting factor. And that's why you see it at the lower storm events,
Yeah.
that there's an improvement, but it stops being effective because. So then I asked our engineers, I said, well, what about just replacing, it's, you know, it's 37 feet right now, what about just making it? No, that's, I mean, there's property problems, you know, and there's.
It's a state-owned bridge, I think.
No, that's town.
So,
And they said it would be $2 million to do that, so
Yep.
that is not of interest.
the other thing I noticed though is the flooding in the Assabet doesn't seem to be totally accounted for, because like in December, that's what flooded upstream. So it
Yeah.
actually came over the dam, but not in the direction people thought. would
You mean like a
expect.
tailwater condition?
Yeah, so it was like the Assabet was backing up into the Showbrook and that went over the dam.
It went over the dam in the other direction.
Well, yeah, it was actually equal.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
This is, we
that-
spent a
that's
long
gonna
time
be-
talking about this
yeah.
with Vicky.
That-
Yeah, but we didn't,
So that would actually affect the modeling results too. I mean, the water coming down Showbrook doesn't have anywhere to go because of the Assabet River is so backed up. And so it didn't look like that was actually accounted for in the modeling. So I just was wondering, you know, was that a consideration or was that captured at all?
So, I mean, Ben, was it you or
No.
Jeff who was talking about, when we were talking about this, we talked about this at our
we talked
meeting.
about it, but,
But I can't explain what you guys explained, it all kind of.
yeah, but if it happened, we have to understand
Yeah.
it. So that's
Pretty
new
good, yeah.
information.
But that would,
Yeah, I
I mean,
think
if you
so.
look at those blue maps with the yellow outline, you just had there.
Go back to the,
2021.
Prior ones?
go back to,
Yeah, back to the ones that you looked at before.
hold on 1 second.
That would align with this idea that 100 or 500 year period flood, super high floods, that there's really no difference either because the Pale Factory Bridge is acting as the constriction, and so the water's staying in the water spot, or the Assabet
But if you go
River
back,
backflow is
like
acting.
this whole parking lot was flooded.
Sorry,
Right, and if, so let's
So
look
the
at these.
water
five-
level was actually up to here.
Yeah, so let's look at these 500 year maps when we can
yeah.
get there,
So the depths and
because
the
it shows that.
elevations, I'm not, okay.
Well, the 500-year maps are the earlier ones, this is.
But it wasn't this series, Delia, it was almost pond wide where it had sort of floodwater and blue.
Yes.
Post dam removal, and
Back
then
up here.
the yellow is current condition with the yellow outline.
That's fine, yeah.
Condition.
Somebody has a page number for me, I think it.
Okay,
325.
So
Oh, no.
Oh, here we
I
go.
wonder if we could try to sort this out now, or it sounds like it's a pretty discrete question that we could put back to EA and
Yeah.
share back with the group. Just if that was considered by them in the analysis.
Keith, for clarification, this is the mid-December storm we're talking about, right, of last year? Okay.
Hmm.
I'm like, I took so many pictures back there, I'm like trying to go through and
Do
see,
you have a
like,
picture of that? That'd be interesting.
well, I don't know, I'm just, I don't know if I have any of the actual dam, I think everything I have is.
I probably have a
The-
photo, like, I sent it to everyone.
So, yeah, Delia, if we look at
Yes.
the 100 and 500,
Okay.
and that's like
Yeah.
the southeast corner of this map. So
Yeah,
this is the 100.
yep, wanna go to 500 or just go down?
Let's look at 100 if we're able to scroll to the right at all. And then down to like the bridge area. So I don't know to what extent this would reflect Assabet River backing up into Neshoba Brook, but it's
it shows.
saying that there's kind of no change, with the blue being post dam removal projected floodplain at 100-year flood, and yellow being existing conditions.
Right, there's no.
And the
Yeah.
same with 500, it was sort of the
Right.
same exact thing.
I actually have a question, like, what was that storm considered, that this past December? What kind of condition was that
But it's
considered?
still flowing
I don't know, it's
downwards.
100.
Yeah,
Still
it's still
flowing
going
downstream.
yeah.
7 point inches. Uh,
Oh, look.
and I don't know what the December was.
The retaining wall.
We could
back
find
up.
that out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, maybe it's just something we could
I
just
don't think
check
we're
in
gonna
with them
check
on
it
and ask. Or
Yeah.
either you
Yeah,
satisfied with
no,
this
I
or.
did, I did notice this too, that there wasn't a drastic change. But this is like the
Yeah, it hasn't been
FEMA
like
flood
that in a
map,
long
so I
time.
don't know how much this affected their modeling. I don't know.
So there's a question to EA.
What was the question?
I don't know. I'm asking, is there a question?
Did their modeling actually take into account flooding in the acid, as opposed to just assuming flooding in the Showbrook is just from that watershed? Does it account for flooding in the Aspen rivers?
That's right.
Is that
And it's still
affects
moving in the bridge.
how the Showbrook drains, essentially?
That is interesting.
Yeah, but there's same situation.
Feel like that's something good, interesting with them.
With or
Okay.
without them.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we'll.
Sounds like you're gonna be really excited too, to get another question about floodplains.
Um. All right, so,
Toby, I had one
yeah, please.
other interest if we're all set with that. This is something, Bruce, I was meaning to catch you before the meeting to chat about, but, so I think this would draw on Bruce's expertise or his ability to connect us with an expert, and that is the potential for restoration of indigenous cultural practices and celebrations around some of these annual natural processes that would be restored with dam removal, like particularly the herring runs.
So the fish migration.
Right.
So we actually, so there's been a project in Rhode Island to actually get over the first 3 dams, in the Blackstone, and basically it's a side sliding, fish ladder. We've secured the rights to the lands that are part of, Duckett redevelopment. But the issue is getting someone to pay the $27 million it's gonna take to basically create this. So we've had a fish migration parade every year that we sort of bring the communities around Duckett Central Falls, and it's all based on sort of the indigenous idea of the river as our relative and how important migration is. So, you know, the Watershed Council, we've done a lot of work on that.
I was reading the websites of a few different organizations based in Plymouth, including the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe, and they have a herring day
Herring, yep.
in, and I think it's common on some of these coastal towns and rivers that either retain fish runs or where they've been restored. And, it'd be interesting to think about that as a future case in West Concord of thinking of reestablishing some sort of, maybe this isn't the best point for it, you know, post Talbot Mill dam removal. But there'd be potential for celebrating that restoration and recovering an element of indigenous
Well,
language.
Mashpee has, it's really interesting because Mashpee has signs up on places where the herring run. Where it's illegal for anyone else to do it except for Mashpee, and it's also illegal to question Mashpee when they're doing it because it's a traditional practice.
And that was one other element, Delia, to look into is the concept of either understanding Native Americans' existing rights to harvest that, you know, maybe could be
Quickly available.
could be incorporated here and or encouraged / accommodated with cultural use easements or anything like that.
There's hunting and fishing rights in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
For the tribes of Massachusetts.
But it'd be interesting, for me to know more about the capacity, interest, potential of Nipmuc and other tribal members in reestablishing something like that in West Concord.
But easily, very possible, very much, if you mean, we're of interest anywhere. I mean, we're at this point, because of sort of access, we end up going to Middleborough. We take our folks to Middleborough to sort of do that. Do our trapping with and catching the herring, then bringing it back for smoking, because that's a long-term food.
I think of the things we've heard of a lot of young boys, including speaking at the public meeting of interest in fishing and will fishing be available in the future. And I think of this, I'm maybe making this up, but some letter exchange between Benjamin Franklin and a Native American leader saying, Benjamin Franklin saying, send us your boys for education. And the chief writing back saying, how about you send us your boys for education? And so the idea of, you know, combining that with traditional ways of fishing.
Well, they do have celebrations. We're actually thinking of, because of sort of the fact that on the Blackstone, the lower end of the Blackstone, it's been over 300 years since the herring had run up, but there's descriptions in early colonial times of basically people being able to almost walk across the rivers on their backs during spawning. We also have an issue right now with how many herring are coming in from the sea because they're being overfished. So, there's that issue as well, but, we're actually looking at maybe possibly an eel festival in the next couple of years. Because there seems to be an interest coming back to the river. American eel.
Would be great to, yeah, help us think about how that could be planned and incorporated and connected again at the right capacity, because I know from working conservation, when there's been outreach to tribal members to say, hey, could you consult on this? And it's great to have you here, Bruce, and I know we appreciate your time. We all do, but
Absolutely.
people, I'm really, I'm busy. I can't be everywhere at once.
Right.
But to sort of put West Concord on the
But we also
list.
have a hunting and fishing group where actually there's a lot of the adults. The adult males who love to hunt and fish, who are starting to work with the youth and getting them back out because we now have, hundreds of acres of tribal land.
Mhm.
There, you can actually hunt and fish. And actually a couple thousand sort of in queue. To come back into our possession, and that's one of the things that we want to really bring back, but, we want to be able to do sort of the tradition, we want to teach them not just the traditional, but also the contemporary.
Mhm.
People have to keep their family.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and that's really what it's about.
Okay, thanks.
So, yeah, so we can have some more conversations about
Okay.
that.
Jeff, anything else on yours for now?
No, that was it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a.
No, I have
raise
nothing
or-
more to say.
So,
Okay.
so time to open
I
for
think
public
we're-
comment? No, we open up for
We've
public
exhausted
comment.
our issues with task force members, just checking, anything else? Okay, all right,
So is it time for public
So-
comments?
yeah,
Anyone from the public want to speak? Again, if they do, respectful of in your comments, avoid personal attacks, and please keep it to no more than 2 minutes.
Well, you know where they are, but.
1 second, honey, we have to quiet.
Yes, who's this?
Anna?
Anna?
Me? Oh, Anna Feldwig, 343 Commonwealth Avenue. I think if before there's another public meeting, it would be good to give people what they asked for at the first one, which was some information, and Malcolm had the idea of having a FAQ document that you then presented that has agreed upon answers to all the questions people have, like, is the water polluted? Can we swim in it? What about drawdown? What's the impact on flooding? How long would dredging last? How old is the dam? What's the cost of dredging? What about the meeting from 2018? What about Giroux? These are all the questions people keep asking. And I think if you had answers that we were all comfortable with, it would be really helpful, and the next public meeting would be much more productive. And there's an ORS FAQ, and there's a Friends of Warner's Pond FAQ, and those could be your starting points, and then you could create the task force FAQ. That was one comment I had. The second comment was, I missed a couple of the meetings over the summer, but did we have a good session on fish passage and what the fish would do if the dam were down versus if the dam were not down, and we had some kind of pool and riffle? Did we have that session? Or is it only the letter that I have?
No, we had someone in for fisheries last time we met, who spoke about those things. So it'll be in the minutes when they're finally put out,
Or the
Okay.
I
recording.
think,
or the recording.
isn't
recording.
the recording already on? Did I?
Is the recording on
The
already?
recording is on the
So it's
website.
already there.
Oh, good. Okay. So that's all about that. The other thing was the FAQ.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, that's it. Back to you.
Okay, then, if there's no further business, then we will, end this meeting at 8:20.